even think we're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have. Does anybody watch UFC, the great day in the world?
I do.
We're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this, on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there. We're going to build a little. We're not. Dana's going to do it.
Oh.
Dana's great, one of a kind. We're going to have a UFC fight, championship fight, full fight, like 20, 25,000 people. And we're going to do that as part of 250 also.
So Donald Trump just announced that the UFC is planning on hosting an event at the White House. So in this video, we're going to be building the card for UFC White House. Now, the first fight to ever take place at the White House has to be spectacular, has to be a banger. And who did we just see recently put on a spectacular banger? Well, I'm talking about Brandon Royval. So we're going to have a flyweight fight to be the first ever fight taking place on the White House soil, and his opponent, I mean, the script writes itself. We got to make a Russian fighter fight the American. I'm talking about Tagir Ulanbekov. Royval versus Ulanbekov. We're going to see Royval throw over 100 significant strikes. We're going to see Ulanbekov fail his takedowns. This fight is going to determine that Dagestani wrestling no longer works in the UFC, and the best grounds for us to see that is the White House. Next prelim we're going to be talking about is Nate the Train Landwehr. If you don't know American fighting, then you don't know Nate Landwehr. This guy only moves forward, only brings entertaining fights, and to matchmake Nate Landwehr at the White House, we got to give him another foreigner. I'm thinking Cuban. Shout out Cuban Missile Crisis. It almost got us into World War III back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. So, as a, pay to respect to the Cubans, we're going to have Nate Landwehr fight Yadier Del Valle. Now, Yadier Del Valle, he has a Contender Series fight where he got a knockout. He has a UFC fight where he got a submission. And this guy is a finisher. This guy moves forward. This guy brings the heat. And this fight is set for fireworks. I'm not saying that the American Nate Landwehr would win, but he would give it all he's got. He's going to show the American dream come to fruition in this fight. Next up, we're going up a weight class. We're going to featherweight. We're going to take Josh Emmett as our American representative for this fight. And Josh Emmett is kind of a win-loss fighter recently. He wins a couple, loses a couple. Nothing consistent for Josh Emmett. But if there's one thing about Josh Emmett that is consistent, it is his knockout power. So we're going to give him someone that he can knock out and someone that is not American, someone that's actually Canadian. We're going to give him unranked Kyle Nelson. This will get Josh Emmett back into the win column. He'll get a nice highlight KO on UFC, the White House soil. So Josh Emmett, he's as American as it gets. We're going to give him a layup knockout fight. So let's get the Canadian out of there. Next up, you got to include at least one women's UFC fight at the White House. I was tempted to not put women at all, but if we're going to put any woman on the card, we're going to put Rose Namajunas. Doug Rose, her fights recently have kind of been boring, kind of been mid, but the Miranda Maverick fight was kind of entertaining, and we're going to put her up against someone that also puts on entertaining women's fights, and it's not an American, it's actually a Chinese fighter. We're going to do Kang Wang versus Rose Namajunas for a title eliminator. Now, I don't believe there will be a finish in this fight, but if there's going to be any women's fight that has high potential for a finish, it's going to be this one. Rose has knockout power. Kang Wang has knockout power. Both ladies have shown pretty decent submission skills. So America versus China, I think America would take this one. So another way for the Americans to go, hoorah! Like USA, USA. The whole point of this card builder is to have the fans in attendance just chanting USA every fight, and I think this is another one that would do so. Next prelim, we're going to be moving up to lightweight. We're going to be taking Jalen Turner. Now, I understand that he quote-unquote retired in his last fight, but he has been showing training footage on his Instagram lately, teasing a return back to the octagon, and if he were to return to the octagon, why not just come back when the UFC goes to the White House? And we're going to put him up against a Mexican lightweight, so we're going to have America versus Mexico, even though we just had America versus China, we had America versus Cuba, and we had America versus Russia. Now we're doing America versus Mexico with Manuel Torres. Now, Manuel Torres is going to be a hard out. I don't actually think Jalen Turner would win this fight. If anything, I think he would actually come in as the betting underdog in this fight, but it would still be close regardless. And if this fight doesn't produce a finish, I don't know what fight possibly can. Manuel Torres is there to get hit, but he's also throwing fire back in your face as well. So Jalen Turner, if there was ever a time to return, why not come back at the White House? Why not come back against a somewhat favorable matchup against Manuel Torres, a fight that would produce high fireworks? Now, the last prelim of the card, the featured prelim, it has to be something that's going to make you tune into the main card. It's got to be something that really engages your attention, has good storyline behind it. So the first fighter we're talking about is Bo Nickel, the American, coming off the RDR KO loss. I believe by the time this card takes place, he will maybe have accrued 1, if not 2 more wins. And we're going to put him up against a Russian that has actually called him out in post-fight interviews, in regular interviews. I'm talking about Ikram Aliskerov. I think Bo Nickel would have a very hard time getting Ikram Aliskerov out of there. He has great takedown defense, and he has great KO power on the feet, so I think this would actually be a nightmare matchup for Bo Nickel. But we're not going to put it on the main card in the case that Bo Nickel loses. We're just going to put it as a featured prelim, so I think Ikram actually wins this one. America versus Russia, White House soil, USA, USA, USA will be chanted. Now for the main card opener, we gotta choose someone that Dana White already has an affinity towards, so it has to be an American, and it has to be an American that can draw in pay-per-view buys, and it has to be an American that can talk. An American that can make the pre-fight press conference a big thing. We're gonna do Colby Covington as the main card opener, because if Colby Covington is on this card, he will not be on the prelims. He will be on the main card. So why not just have him open the card against an up-and-coming middleweight prospect that just lost to Ian the Cuck Machado Gary? We're talking about Carlos Prates. I think Prates versus Covington down the line would be a very interesting fight to see. Covington with his wrestling style versus Prates and his knockout style. Prates gets the knockout here. They would be outdoors, so he can actually start lighting some cigarettes, so that would be a reason for Prates to be on this card. And if Covington wins a boring decision, he'll probably get booed on the White House lawn. That would be funny to see. And then he would attempt to shake Donald Trump's hand, and Donald Trump would say, "Get that out of here. You just put on a boring fight to open the main card." So there's actually a lot of incentive for Colby to not fight boring. And if Colby doesn't fight boring, Prates probably wins by KO. So it should be a great fight to open the main card. Now I'm getting a little tricky. I'm deviating from the normal UFC pay-per-view structure, because I'm going to include a UFC BJJ match. Now the UFC BJJ just started their first season, and their crowning welterweight champ was Andrew Tackett. Andrew Tackett sits in the top 10 pound for pound no-gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the world, and he just so happens to be the UFC BJJ welterweight champ. So we're going to put Andrew Tackett up against someone interesting, someone very interesting. We're going to put him up against the ONE FC welterweight BJJ champ, Cade Ruotolo. So Cade Ruotolo, since he fights for ONE FC, kind of makes him Chinese. And he's a very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, so he's kind of Brazilian, but really he's American. So American versus slash Brazilian slash Chinese BJJ matchup. High fireworks to be had in this one. Both guys are very dominant in their weight class. I don't actually believe they've ever fought in a jiu-jitsu setting. So if the UFC were to introduce jiu-jitsu matches into pay-per-views, this would be a very good one to have on the White House lawn. Now let's keep going through the main card. Of course, we gotta have heavyweights here, and the American representative I'm picking for heavyweight is Derek Lewis. He's the knockout king. He has the most knockouts in UFC history, and we're gonna put him up against an even more potent finisher at heavyweight, who's also a Russian. America versus Russia, Rocky versus Drago. This is the fight right here. Derek Lewis versus Sergey Pavlovich. Both guys are knockout artists. I hope this doesn't turn out like Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou, where it was a staring contest for 3 rounds. I actually think Sergey would move forward and bring the pressure to Lewis. I do think Sergey would win this, unfortunately. Russia finally gets their get back for Rocky 4, but still, you gotta have Derek Lewis on the main card, and the chance that he wins, because then we'll see him take his pants off at the White House. That would be funny. Featured fight of the main card, we gotta include Sean Strickland, and I don't believe he would be on the prelims. Because, you know, Sean Strickland fights are mostly boring, so I'm kind of tiptoeing a line, putting him on the main card as the featured fight. But we're gonna put him up against someone that's gonna force the action, probably make it not boring. We're going with Roman Kopylov, America versus Russia, back-to-back fights. I think Roman Kopylov would get the better of the exchanges in this one, but if Sean Strickland is going to be motivated to win any fight ever, it would be against the Russian at the White House. So Sean Strickland versus Kopylov, the rankings make sense because if Kopylov beats Costa, he'll be in the top 10, and Strickland is probably fighting down after back-to-back title losses. So give me this, Dana. Let's book it. Now, the co-main event of the evening has to be a title fight. You cannot possibly have a White House card and only have one title fight. So, the only American champion is Kayla Harrison. Out of men and women, the only American champ is Kayla Harrison. We gotta have her on this card. And if she were to defend her belt, there's literally no one in the rankings that is a good fight for Kayla Harrison, so we have to reach outside the rankings. For the super fight, Amanda Nunes is coming out of retirement to fight at the White House against Kayla Harrison. This would be an epic matchup. Kayla Harrison has yet to really be matched in MMA other than Larissa Pacheco, and that happened at 155 at lightweight. At bantamweight 135, this is the fight to make next. Now, I don't know if it'll make it all the way to the White House. Maybe Nunes comes back and wins, and the rematch would take place at the White House. I can see that. Harrison is one of the most dominant females we've ever seen grace the octagon, and Nunes is the female GOAT of the UFC. So we need to see this one. Let's do it at the White House. Now for the main event. I went back and forth a lot on this main event because it has to be like a heavier weight class. We can't have a lightweight in the main event. Like Max Holloway I was thinking about Justin Gaethje. But I think you gotta have a title on the line, and it's gotta be against a country we're currently in scuffles with. So with all that being said, my American representative for the main event, it's gonna be shocking, but we're going with Dominic Reyes, because I truly believe he's one fight away from another title shot, and the current champ, the script writes itself, is Russian Magomed Ankalaev. We're going to have 3 instances on the main card alone of America versus Russia. So this will be the final one, the final iteration of Rocky IV, Drago versus Rocky. Dominic Reyes truly has a Rocky story, if you think about it. He got all the way to the title fight super quickly, gets robbed against John Jones, goes on a downward career trajectory, knockout loss after knockout loss after knockout loss. He was contemplating retirement, and now he's on a 2-fight, I think, or maybe 3-fight winning streak, finishing all of his opponents in the meantime. KO over Anthony Smith, KO over Nikita Krylov, KO over Dustin Jacoby, and his next fight, if he finds a KO victory, he's probably getting the title shot, and this would be the true American dream. This guy started from nothing, got fast-tracked to the title, loses, goes down in the dumps, doesn't feel sorry for himself, wipes the dirt off his sleeves, goes back and fights for the title against the Russian, and if he gets the knockout over Ankalaev, this would be absolute cinema.